All right, Matt Patricia. Okay. I would be and will be, when I look at this, as much intrigued by the media's questioning of him. I'm not going to call it a controversial hire. That would be leaning a little heavy, but a questionable hire. There were questions concerning whether he was the right guy for the job. It was not a quote unquote slam dunk hire, uh, at least for Buckeye fans, media, etc. So I'll start out with that. Did there seem to be a bit of pessimism in the air, or just we want to really get at this in terms of his qualifications and how he represents his resume and his qualifications?
Well, it was an interesting hire because like he was not on any really initial early lists, and then all people think about Matt Patricia anymore is the Detroit Lions tenure. And I thought his answer on the Lions situation was really interesting because he talked about when he was with New England, like they would win the Super Bowl, and then the next year they would lose it, and then they would go on and like win it the next year, whatever. Like every year, every time they lost the Super Bowl, the entire coaching staff would just be like hyper focused on getting back to the Super Bowl and winning it. And that's all they cared about. They didn't care about anything else. It was just getting back to the Super Bowl. And so the year before he left for Detroit, they lost the Super Bowl. So then he gets to Detroit with that same kind of mindset as this is this first introduction to the Lions is like, we've got to win the Super Bowl. We've got to, like that's how he was. That's what his mentality was. And he said it was absolutely the wrong way to approach the job because this wasn't the New England Patriots you were taking over. And he didn't really give the program, the franchise, the team, the players an opportunity to know them as they are. And he was focused on, he was still in the Patriots mindset, and he never got out of that. And he admitted that was the wrong way to be. And, you talk to people from Detroit, and it's like he was a miserable person. You talked to him last week, and this guy seemed like the happiest guy in the room to be at Ohio State. So, yeah, I can believe the people in Detroit were not happy with him and will continue to speak badly about him. But, I think he said, like, I'm not that same guy. And Ryan Day has said that. So, I thought he was interesting. He was like happy to meet people. Not that he's going to remember everybody's names, but he was open and he was forthcoming. And, he certainly gives longer answers than Jim Knowles. So that's good for the media guys.
I would think that maybe the percentage of people that are miserable in Detroit just overall is fairly high.
God bless. What an awful, miserable, awful, dire. I only go to Michigan in the wintertime, like we went to Michigan State early in the season and it wasn't that bad, but usually I'm there in November, December, January, or February for football and basketball. And it just, the words dire, cold, awful, just desperate, just, it's just, the weather there is so much different than the weather in Ohio, and we're only a couple 100 miles away. I mean, you cross over into Michigan and, the roads aren't very good. And, there's ice and snow on the road. You come into Ohio, everything's perfect and taken care of. So, yeah, it's like night and day, really.
We had this in Ohio and perhaps other areas of the Midwest this past weekend, a dusty rain where dust storm from Texas got up into the atmosphere and the rain and wind blew it over, and then it just brought down this dirty water.
Snow water, yeah.
Yeah, like all over Ohio. And that's just kind of how I think we all envision Michigan and the roads there and the towns there. So that's basically what it was. No offense.
Yeah, so anything else regarding Matt Patricia's conversation that stands out?
Well, just the multiple nature of the defense. Like he is the only new guy, so this is not just going to be Matt Patricia's defense. They'll all work together. They'll continue to move more towards a multiple defensive line. Three front, four guys. Like they were starting to do that last year, and I thought it was interesting. James Laurinaitis said that when they hired Matt Patricia, the first player that he thought of about that hire was CJ Hicks. because CJ Hicks is now going to be playing defensive end, moving from linebacker to play defensive end and be that edge rusher that he's wanted to be. And I think we saw last year that linebacker just wasn't going to work out for him. So this is an opportunity for him to do something that he wants to do. So anytime they move players positionally, it's always because a player is willing to do it. Not only is CJ Hicks willing to do it, this is not necessarily something they said, hey, would you want to do this? Like, he's going to the coach and says, I want to do this. So that also is indicative of how much, the work that he's going to put in to make this work. And honestly, they need defensive ends because they lost 3 from last season.
All right. Yeah, Patricia's the guy that everybody wants to hear about. He is the one that I would listen to first and foremost, and will. I brought up Bowen for this one point. Virginia Tech, Ohio State, obviously 2 different statuses of college football at this level. However, offensive coordinator versus, now he does, as you alluded to, Tony, he does have the run game coordinator status there. But if anyone asked him, I was just curious about taking, in a sense, a step down from full reign of the offense at a major program.
I think part of this was he's going to be involved in the offense, but it's like, a step down from being the guy, the play caller, the OC, to just an offensive line coach. And I think I can't necessarily talk about his motivation other than it's Ohio State and things weren't going all that great for him at Virginia Tech. So there's kind of the getting out while the getting is good sort of thing. And as I just scroll through some of his answers here to see why, it's like, I don't know that he necessarily got into it, but in terms of why Ryan Day wanted him, it's to bolster Brian Hartline as the first time OC. And so you're adding somebody who's done that before and has been involved in the running game. No, he's not coached the offensive line since 2017, but he's a former offensive lineman himself. He's been tied to the tight ends, which are tied to the offensive line. So like, he considers himself an offensive line guy. And so you've got that connection there with Hartline to help him through that. Also, the recruiting is a big aspect of it as well. But I think some of this is just whatever you are at Virginia Tech. If you're the OC, sure, it's a step down in terms of title, but it's a step up in terms of place. And you go from offensive line coach at Ohio State, you can turn that into something else. But it's also an opportunity to just win, get your name out there for a few years, and who knows what your next step is. But yeah, it is interesting because I'm rambling here because I'm trying to see it. Like, what was his? Did he have any good answers in terms of why he would leave, other than the fact that it's Ohio State and it's the offensive line coach, it's still being involved, and maybe it's just more of a comfort thing because that's what he knows more than the quarterback, even though like he was a quarterback's coach, so it's not like he doesn't know the position. But I'll stop talking now, and maybe Steve will have an answer, because I don't have a great answer as to why would you step down, other than the fact he doesn't consider it a step down, and it's probably also a pay raise.
Well, I got to tell you, are we talking about Tyler Bowen? I was buffering there for just a second. I think, coaching at Virginia Tech is very prestigious. No doubt about it. They've got a great football program, and, over the last 30 years have been very competitive. But when you have a chance to come and work at the number one football program in America, which is Ohio State, I think you jump at that. So Ohio State pays well, supports the coaches well, has got every advantage, and is going to compete for national championships, 3 out of every 4 years. So to me, this is the place you want to be if you want to be, considered at the top of your profession. And is it a trade-off that you're no longer exactly calling plays as you were at Virginia Tech? Possibly, but you're part of something much bigger at Ohio State. You have a chance to put together a team that could go out and compete for a national championship. So to me, I think that there were probably a lot of factors in the decision, and I'm sure he thought it through. But obviously, Ohio State needed the help on the offensive line. And it was just kind of an added bonus, as you laid out there, that Brian Hartline is getting somebody who's been there and done that and can really help him formulate game plans and on Saturday suggest plays based on what he's seeing with the defense and everything else in terms of the run game, possibly even the pass game. So I think it's a win-win for all involved. Do I think Tyler Bowen is going to be at Ohio State forever? Does he jump off and become, an offensive coordinator at a like school to Ohio State, one of the top 10 programs, possibly? So, I think it is a step up for him in terms of salary, even though he's not a coordinator, and an opportunity for him to make that jump to take the next step in his career. So I just look at it that a win-win for all involved. And again, if Ohio State wins, all these guys will win and improve their station. And, we've seen that and we'll continue to see it.
I got the answer for you here because I finally found it. It's so that he's drawn to the opportunity to coach at Ohio State. For one, it's Ohio State and the prestige is there. That's an attractive destination. And second, he saw it as an opportunity to return to his coaching roots on the offensive line. And you add those things up, and those are good answers in terms of why you leave. It's want to get back to the offensive line. It's Ohio State. You want to win, and so this is an opportunity. And Justin Frye was making $1 million as an offensive line coach, so there's also that possibility in a year or two as well. If he's not doing it already, we won't get the contracts until next month.